You know, a lot of people gave this movie a hard time when I finally decided to watch it. I don't remember having that hard of a time watching it. This is Replicas, starring Keanu Reeves. The first thing you want to get out of the way is Keanu Reeves. Keanu is an actor whom, when you watch one of his movies, you have to know how Keanu Reeves is going to be. He's probably going to sound and act and move about very similarly to how he used to act, how he acted in the past, and all that other stuff. If you've watched how he acted in The Matrix, if you watched how he acted in Chain Reaction, if you watched how he acted in a bunch of things, he acts how you would expect him to act in Replicas as well. I'd actually recommend Chain Reactions. It's actually a really, really interesting thriller. It stars Rachel Weisz as well. It's a pretty fun film. Now this one has very interesting concept. It reminded me of another movie that failed called Transcendence, starring Johnny Depp. It's about transporting your consciousness, or rather your brain, everything in the head, and transporting that into digitality, into robot, and also into clones. This film goes into clones and clone technology. Naturally, they don't go into too much detail about how they create all these clones, but the ideas that they put forward, if you're not a big biology sciencey science person, then the basic science jargon that they dish out is going to be simplistic enough for most people to follow. For example, when it comes to making clones and trying to figure out how to put the human consciousness into the robot, we open the film with Keanu trying to do this with a dead soldier. He uploads the brain into the robot, but the robot kept saying, "Who am I?" and yada yada yada, and it failed to achieve full consciousness. And Keanu figures out that the reason why this isn't happening is because the brain is coded to look for its body. It's looking for its body. So that when the consciousness activates in the robot body, it's looking for its body. It cannot find its body. It cannot find a heartbeat. It cannot find lungs. It cannot breathe. And it starts to panic. It starts to freak out. It's trying to breathe. There's no air to come in. It's looking for blood and heartbeat. And it's feeling afraid, but there's no heartbeat. It is a very scary experience. And the robot pretty much committed self-destruction because of it. So what Keanu realizes is that you need to create a clone of the dead person. You need to create a clone of the person's body and then upload the consciousness into that body. That person's body. Not a different person's body, but that body specifically. Why? It's because that way, when the brain activates and is looking for its body, it will find its body. It will find its heartbeat, it will find its lungs, it will find all the motor functions. The brain's trying to make all these things activate, and they're activating, and you will achieve consciousness and wakefulness, and the memories will activate, and all of that stuff. And we get to see this show off in full example because right away, Keanu is shown with a wife and 3 loving children. Well, there's a very terrible car crash. It's very typical. It's very typical. And what do I mean by typical? I mean there's always going to be a back road on a stormy night. And instead of pulling off the road when visibility gets poor, you decide to just keep driving. I would have pulled off the road. It's a very back roadsy little place. Who knows what you're going to run into? You may run into a truck or anything like that. So it's safer to pull off the side of the road, but Keanu decides to keep going forwards. They're going camping. You don't want to miss that in the middle of the rain. So he keeps driving through the storm. He gets cut off by a falling tree. He rams off the road. He dives into a lake, a river, or whatever. He loses consciousness, and when he wakes up, he finds that everybody, his entire family, has perished. He pulls out all of their bodies because they pretty much, for the most part, seem to be pretty okay, except for the wife who's been impaled by a tree branch. That's pretty bad. And he calls his work buddy instead of calling the cops. He calls his work buddy and says, "Hey, bring the sciencey equipment. We bring it over, no questions asked." And so his buddy brings all the sciencey science equipment, and he uploads the brain of his wife and his 3 children into these little hard drive disks. And he plans to have his buddy create clone bodies of his dead family so that he can put the memories and consciousness that he downloaded onto these hard drive disks and put them into the clone bodies. He succeeds in doing this. For the first hour of this film, I was strapped in. I actually really did love the whole process of bringing this family back to life. I loved watching it. I loved him having to hide things and trying to figure out social lives to try to get the world thinking that his family's still alive and all of that stuff while he's growing clones in his basement. It is fantastic. Where it falls apart is after the clones wake up, and he succeeds, of course. The wife and the kids and all the memories, they're all back. But it kind of falls apart. It's not exactly succeeding story-wise. Things start to get a little inconsistent. His boss man suddenly finds out about all these things, and there's a lot of plot twists. And in the end, he uploads his own consciousness into a robot body. So he uploads his consciousness, his own brain. Because he's like pressured by his boss to do this. He uploads his own brain as a test subject and puts it into the robot body. After figuring out how to break the code to remove the part of the brain that is looking for a living body. And also, since it's his brain and his memories, he will know he'll be in a robot body, so he won't be as panicky. And so his boss doesn't know he's using his brain. His boss thinks he's put the soldier's brain in there. So when the boss and him come to a confrontation, and the boss says he knows about the family clones and how it's a scientific breakthrough, but we're not here to make clones, we're here to make robot super weapons to send robot drones into war and all that stuff, because it's all about all that stuff as usual. And so Keanu activates the robot, which is himself, and his robot clone ends up defeating his boss, and everybody lives happily ever after. Keanu gets to live with the clones of his family. It's fun. The first half is very interesting. Very interesting. The second half falls apart. That's why I want to say this film has some very good ideas. The first hour is fantastic. I was at the edge of my seat, just waiting and anticipating to see if Keanu can wake the clone up, and the clone would act just like how his wife did before she died. And I was just waiting to see if he succeeded in the sciencey, experimenty, all that stuff. I was thrilled. It was fantastic stuff. It's just after all of that stuff in the final act, it's just not as good in the final act. But the first 2 acts, the first act and a half, I should say, are good. I'd give this one a passing grade. It's worth a watch if you like science fiction. Even if you like cheapo science fiction, if you like cheesy science fiction, this is the type of film that you might be interested in. See how they tackle creating replicas or clones and all that stuff, because I think clone ideas and all that stuff are really interesting, and we don't really have too many films or too many stories, big ones, that Hollywood, theatrical and all that stuff, that go over clones like this. Star Wars obviously did the Clone Wars and all that stuff, but they didn't really go into too much detail about the clones. It's like, could you create a clone of a Jedi? Well, one of the video games did. It's just, I don't know. I liked it. Most people probably didn't. You probably won't, but I liked it.